Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. 1992, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. Jeff, you've heard me say this before, but this should have been one of the top 5 greatest feuds in the history of professional wrestling. It didn't work out because of Bret Hart's contract and personal animosity between these two, but this should have been this generation's Rock Austin. I know people still talk about this rivalry as being among the bigger and better ones ever, but if you look at what they did in the ring versus what they could have done in the ring, there was a lot left on the table on this one. So, but this I won't say kicks it off because there were some other matches. There was a ladder match. There was these guys worked some stuff that wasn't highly televised, but this was the first kind of major match between these two. Why did you put it on our list?
It's Bret Shawn. We could just say that, and it's time for the payoff. What more do you need, really? To kind of break this one down. This was one that, looking through our list of matches, part of it's Survivor Series season, of course, and so we're kind of right in the heart of that, and so coming up in a week and a half here. I think between that and then just this was one of those how did we miss this? I had to go back and double check to make sure that we hadn't covered this one, because I was that's not possible. With how much you like Shawn, how much I like Bret, we had to have covered this one at one point. And sure enough, we haven't. And like you said, this was early in their kind of intertwined careers, really. And so no better reason to cover it than that.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm pumped to cover this one. There's a lot to talk about during, a lot to talk about before and after. This era, this 1992, for whatever reason, just fascinates me, and not in a good way. It's because the year was kind of a shit show for WWF. But anyways, we'll get into all of this. Let's jump right into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So we are in Cleveland, Ohio, technically Richfield, Ohio. This is the old Cleveland Cavalier Arena. We're in Richfield.
I was going to ask.
Town.
I know you know the Ohio geography. I was curious, how far it was from you growing up. Yeah.
So not close to me, but and this was kind of in the middle of nowhere. So this was a random facility, but this is where the first ever Survivor Series was hosted, and then we're back at it again. This was on November 25th, 1992. 18,000 in attendance, and we started off with a dark match of Crush defeating the Repo Man. Then the Bloodline. I'm sorry, the Head Shrinkers, Samu and Fatu,
with OG Bloodline,
defeated high energy of Owen Hart and Coco Beware in 7 minutes. It's so interesting because I don't know what I was watching, but I'm watching the Head Shrinkers, and obviously there were the Wild Samoans, and it's actually kind of hard to believe, and maybe there weren't enough guys in the business at any given time, but it's kind of hard to believe they never started some type of a faction. So anyways, Big Boss Man's going to defeat Nails in 5 minutes in a nightstick on a pole match. Tatanka is going to defeat Rick Martel by pinfall in 11 minutes. Randy Savage and Mr. Perfect are going to defeat Ric Flair and Razor Ramon in 16 minutes by DQ. Again, why not just do a clean finish, right? It just makes no sense to me. But that was Ultimate Warrior was supposed to be in that spot. Him and Bulldog left because of steroids. Again, just a crazy, crazy year. Yokozuna, this was his first pay-per-view match. Again, Bloodline. This could have been now. You may know this from the Yokozuna documentaries. The original thought was to put him with the Head Shrinkers as kind of like the third tag team partner. And if you watch his tryout match and you watch his Coquino Maximus wrestling, he looked like a bigger Head Shrinker. So it's just so funny that now he's a Japanese sumo wrestler. I mean, they did a good job of it. I mean, I never thought of him as anything other than Japanese when I was a kid. So pretty wild.
No, right.
We had one traditional tag team Survivor Series match, 4-on-4, Natural Disasters and Nasty Boys defeating Money Inc. and Beverly Brothers. 15 minutes, no purpose for it other than to have that one Survivor Series match. The Undertaker is going to defeat Kamala in a coffin match. And then our main event, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, for the WWF Championship. Title versus, it wasn't a title versus title, but you have your two champions here. I'm pumped to cover this one. So I really want to know what the build to this match was, because I don't know if there was any or it was just, here you go, you two are in the main event. And again, this was such a crazy time. We'll talk about this more during the match, but it was just, nothing they did in 1992 made any sense. And for years, I just, was so annoyed by it. But then you hear all the behind the scenes stuff and you go, well, what are you going to do? You had no Hulk Hogan, and Macho was on it, kind of semi-retired, and he didn't want to wrestle full time anymore. And Warrior and Bulldog got dinged with steroids, and Ric Flair had vertigo and couldn't wrestle, and then he wanted out of his contract. So it's like, how else do you book this? I don't know.
Yeah, and so this was, like you said, 92, and I cover most of 92 here to kind of help everybody out of, like, this was a lot of firsts for both of these guys. Like you said, like, kind of how this played out and kind of how it happened. So we'll start actually with Shawn. That it would have been WrestleMania 8. That was April 5th, 1992. This Survivor Series taking place in late November 25th, 1992. So Shawn, April 5th, a few months before this, he actually beat Tito Santana. It was his first pay-per-view singles match after they had both had been eliminated at the same time from that year's Royal Rumble. And so that was his first match there. So we're getting into that with Michaels and kind of developing him. So then he became the number one contender and failed to win the WWF Championship from Randy Savage. That was his first opportunity to compete for that title, and that was at the UK Rampage. We've covered that match before. It was about 2 weeks later, April 19th at Sheffield Arena, and taking on that. So then you get into him not winning the Intercontinental Championship from Bret. That was WWF's first ladder match at Wrestling Challenge, which taped on July 21st. And so then you get even a little bit further of him winning the title. He actually won the title from, his title from the British Bulldog. It was Saturday Night Main Event. It would have been 31 at that point, which aired on November 14th. So, like you said, him coming in with the belt from the British Bulldog on that point. So Bret on the flip side here, going back, we're like Wrestling Challenge. This would have been July 1992. He beat Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental Championship with the belt suspended above the ring. Like we said, that was that first ever ladder match. So then you had him dropping the title to Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog. That would have been Hart's first pay-per-view main event at SummerSlam 1992 August. And so that was at Wembley, of course, 80,000 fans, all that. That was the match of the year, 1992. Some lists, I've got to, and WWE named the match as the greatest in the history of SummerSlam. So whatever. But so then you had so he losing that Intercontinental belt, which of course Shawn then eventually wins. You then had Hart winning the WWF Championship from Ric Flair. It was a Superstars taping, Saskatchewan Place in Saskatchewan. Ooh, that's a mouthful. There you go. October 12th of that year, 1992. It was originally not broadcast on TV, but it was eventually available on home video.
Smack 'em, whack 'em.
Smack 'em, whack 'em. Yes, exactly. So, but then kind of having defenses, it's funny because he made successful title defenses against Kamawa, Berserker, and Papa Shango. So not a real stacked roster of stars at that point. But so, like you said, you've got Shawn coming in with the Intercontinental Championship, he winning it from the British Bulldog. You've got Hart coming in with the WWF Championship, which Shawn was unsuccessful in winning. Like I said, both guys were really as we like they were getting the rocket strapped to them because of everything that was kind of going on in the WWE. Notice we didn't say the name Hulk Hogan, we didn't say the name Ultimate Warrior, like the way he said Ric Flair, but losing the title that one time. But yeah, so just really interesting how these guys kind of playing that, and then they have this match at Survivor Series. I did think it's weird there was only one Survivor Series match and it was kind of garbage, but that's what you get sometimes. So yeah, that's it. Kind of real good build on this one. A lot of intertwining pieces, a lot of kind of belts back and forth, or at least like kind of the top belts in the promotion. So good stuff.
I'm pumped to cover it. We are at the 2 hour, 3 minute mark of Survivor Series 1992. 2 hour and 3 minute mark. Jeff, are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right. It's time for...
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
Shawn Michaels, Intercontinental title holder against the World Wrestling Federation champion. What a classic match this is likely to be. You can't travel and defend the title as much as Bret Hart is doing, and the law of averages, they just have to catch up. You know about that.
All right, so they're framing Bret Hart as this fighting champion. Look, I've mentioned this before, and I know they were in a tough position. And remember, this is not the era of weekly live 3 hour Raw, 3 hour SmackDown, monthly pay-per-views. We have a streaming deal where technically we could push out whatever we want, whenever we want, if we needed to. It's just a different era. Okay. So
yep,
absolutely have to preface that. That being said, what we ended up doing a month prior to this on a house show, and granted they were taping some matches for different videos and syndication, but on a random show in Saskatoon, they transitioned the championship from Ric Flair to Bret Hart. Now, keep in mind,
yep,
a month prior was a random match where Ric Flair defeated Randy Savage for the title. In that match, it was so bad, Vince McMahon made them go back out and reshoot the match. That's how bad the match was. Yep. Okay. So this was not a good era for them. Now, they had to get the title off of Flair. How do you not just kill 30 days and get the title off Flair at Survivor Series? I mean, he was able to work this show. So why wouldn't you say, look, it's Survivor Series. It's Bret Hart, the feisty up-and-comer, challenging Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight Championship. And you get Bret his moment, because the reality is, and maybe they knew this at the time, maybe they didn't, but Bret Hart becoming champion was a new era. It was the new generation. No different than the Austin era, the Attitude Era has begun, John Cena, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So
yep,
you're shifting not only champions to a guy you're hoping can carry the company for the next 5+ years, but you're shifting to a new generation. Smaller guys, not muscular, to the point where steroids is in question because we're now being charged federally for it, and we've created banned substances, hence why the Bulldog and Warrior were fired from the company for HGH. So this is a massive, massive moment for us. Yet we're going to just give this title to this guy, and it's not even going to be televised. So it's impossible to know what the effect of this was, but I never took Bret Hart all that seriously. He never was my guy. He never was someone that I thought this is like the new Hulk Hogan, okay? And I believe part of that was if you transition to it on TV, on basically a dark match, and you don't make a big coronation over it, and you don't project this guy as being this massive star, why would me at 8 years old perceive him to be a big star? I thought Ric Flair was a big star because he came in with the world championship. I thought Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, Hulk Hogan were big stars because they were presented as big stars. Bret Hart was never presented as a big star. So he never had a chance. And if he had been promoted as the guy, and there was this massive coronation where at the end of a 20-minute match, Ric Flair taps out to the sharpshooter, guess what? I think he would have had a far better chance of being an all-time great. And you can argue whether or not he's an all-time great. But in my mind, he's a tier below or 2 tiers below some of the all-time greats. And he's a fantastic in-ring worker. He had a Hall of Fame career. But, man, he was never the guy like an Austin, like a Cena, like a Roman Reigns, like a Hulk Hogan, and he should have been during this era, but they never gave him a shot. Now, the other part of this, and then I want you to comment, Vince McMahon, in his Netflix documentary, said Bret Hart was not charismatic.
Yeah.
And then as I look back at this match and his promos during this era, I go, yeah, Vince, you're right. He was not charismatic. So maybe he was never going to be the guy. Those are my thoughts. What do you say?
Yeah, I think it is just really interesting to me because, like, you know, with you saying that and kind of, you know, now we can look back over his whole career and kind of what he did and stuff like that. Like he never, like, yeah, he won the title, but he never really was the guy. Like, you know, like and I do think, like, now that we see it, like Shawn was Vince's guy. It was never Bret. It was, you know, it was never going to be that way. And so, you know, Vince was going to ride Shawn to the top, and that was that. And so you start kind of looking at the count. It's like LeBron Jordan type thing, like, you know, in the comparisons here, like, you know, do I think Bret is better in ring? Yep, absolutely. From a technical standpoint, yep. But from a performer standpoint, got to give it to Shawn, like, you know, and kind of looking at it that way. And so,
and who was the better talker?
Right. Exactly. Like Shawn. And so, like, it kind of, you know, all these different things. Now, who had maybe a little bit better of a backstory with the, you know, the Hart Dungeon and all that, like Bret. Like Shawn was the Rockers, you know, he kind of had that. And so, like, you're splitting hairs in a lot of this, but at the same point, like, it does, especially in this era, and we didn't know it at the time, we do now, but like, it does boil down to what Vince wanted. And Vince didn't want Bret. Like, and this was long before the screw job or any of that. Like, you know, yeah, he wanted him on the roster, and part of it was, you know, you had all these other wrestlers that were a bigger deal to him at that point. It was the old boys mentality, like you said it. He was the Warrior. It was Flair, like, type thing, and kind of having that, which you know, just really, it's just interesting. Now, you know, it does help to be able to look back on all of it and kind of see it this way. Now, you know, like we said, like, it's Shawn and Bret. That's why we're covering this match. Like, they weren't going to go out there and have a bad match. Like, I think Bret's kind of, I don't even know the best way to put it, but, like, you know, his feelings toward Goldberg, and I think his feelings toward wrestling in general are just really interesting. I know we've said it before. He definitely is bitter about some of it. Like, when it comes to Goldberg, like I get, like, Goldberg's like, fuck him. I don't care anymore. Like, let him say whatever he wants. But man, every opportunity Bret gets the chance to say something about Goldberg, he's going to say something about Goldberg. And so, who knows? But I would probably be a little jaded too. Like, there's things he probably knows that we don't know or will never know about Vince and what happened behind the scenes, and how guys were treated, and obviously everything with Owen. Like, it just. It's crazy, like, the life that he had and some of that stuff. And so, but it's really wild. It is.
These two are just so good in the ring. I mean, I'm just sitting here watching this, and they're just awesome.
Fast. Yeah.
They're
it's
awesome.
Great to watch.
So, again, my biggest knock on Bret at this stage is he couldn't talk a damn person into the building. Like, why do I need to watch Bret Hart? I mean, yeah, it's cool. He's good at excellence, execution, good in-ring worker, but like, he just couldn't talk anyone into the building. There was nothing about his character that again, the Hart story, they really didn't even start to tell that until, I want to say, a year or two later. The Jerry Lawler bagging on the Hart family, and then Owen Hart and Bret feuding. I mean, that wasn't even going on really at this point. We didn't know a lot of that. Okay, so like, what's Vince going to do? If Bret can't talk, he can't talk. He can write promos for him, but if he's not charismatic. Now, at the same time, Bret wins the title, not televised. There's no coronation. And Jeff, who's he wrestling against? Well, he's headlining house shows against the Mountie, the Berserker, Rick Martel, Papa Shango, and Virgil. So you're putting Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant and the Macho Man and the Ultimate Warrior and King Kong Bundy and the Big Boss Man and Earthquake. And you're putting Bret Hart against the Berserker. They need heels to work with. And in this era, there weren't. I mean, there weren't. And I mean, even if you go and you look at the card for this particular show, who are you putting Bret Hart against? The Repo Man? Boss Man's a baby.
Boss Man,
Nails?
Yeah.
Martel?
Right.
I mean,
even the Undertaker got stuck with Kamala. Yeah,
you got Kamala. I mean, I mean, who are you putting him against? The Beverly Brothers. I mean, there's just nothing on this roster. Was just horrendous. I mean, this is one of the worst. I mean, this might be the lowest point of talent they had. I mean, you'd have to, and you could pull up like a B show SmackDown only pay-per-view from 2008 and maybe the card was worse. But I mean, in terms of like a major pay-per-view, we're going to put all of our talent on the show, man. And again, you weren't going to put him against Savage and Perfect. They're baby faces. He beat Flair. And Flair was on his way out. Razor Ramon, he had a feud with him. Yoko, he put him against. I mean, it's just a really interesting time, man. But just brutal.
It's weird. It's funny because I just pulled up the poster actually for this one, and even on the poster, the main event, it's Warrior and Savage versus Razor and Flair. How long before that was he fired? I'm trying to think here. Yeah,
who?
Warrior or the steroid stuff?
Weeks before.
I say because the poster still has them on it. Yes, which is wild.
Yeah, so like a month prior, Shawn beat Bulldog for the IC title, and the reason that happened is because Bulldog was fired. And then Warrior wasn't a champion, so he just left. But I mean, it's pretty wild, man. You had and remember, we're just a few months removed from Bulldog winning the big coronation, the main event of SummerSlam 1992, and basically that entire thing meant nothing because the Bulldog's gone and he's just out of the company. He's of no value to the company. Whereas you're probably looking at Bulldog saying, hey, is this guy IC champion for a year? Is he a future world champion? We just, headlined a huge show with him. You're probably looking at Warrior during this stretch going, okay, do we give him another run? Like if we can count on him, Hogan's nowhere to be found. Maybe there is another Warrior run here. Maybe we can get him the title at WrestleMania 9 and get a year or two out of him on top. That wasn't to happen either.
It's a good match right now. You got kind of technical. There's on the mat, some mat wrestling happening right now. Interesting to see it from Shawn too. Just kind of in the headlock. Got Bret down on the mat. Yeah. I want to know your thoughts too. I know this was recently. I think maybe about a month or so ago. We just haven't talked about it. Shawn, kind of not fully he did endorse, but said he would be on board if CM Punk became his successor in NXT. What are your thoughts on if Punk kind of and I don't know exactly what Shawn's title is, but he pretty much runs NXT. But what would your thoughts be if Punk, when his run was over, whether he took the Shawn Michaels role on or became a coach? Like, where do you I guess where do you see Shawn going eventually, and who could be his successor to running NXT?
I'll tell you, I mean, Punk would certainly be on the short list, which, to not only say he'd come back to WWE, but he'd be in a key executive role with the company. Mm-hmm. I think he's on the short list. I also wonder, is Shawn Michaels still going to be doing it in 10 years? Wouldn't shock me. I mean, once people are in, they never seem to leave. Right. And again, I don't know, but Triple H, is Triple H still going to be in that position in a decade? My money would be on yes.
Yeah.
Which
who knows what the ownership's going to look like? Yeah.
I mean, you just never know. But I mean, look, the ownership, the TKO company needs stability, right? You don't want to be flip-flopping that. And it's one of the interesting things is, right, like take being general manager of the NFL, Roger Goodell. How many people on the planet could do that job? Thousands, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, any NFL executive, any team executive, I mean, a lot of people could do that job. Triple H's job, how many people on the planet could do that job? I don't know if there's 10.
Yeah, half dozen. Yeah, is what I was going to say.
Okay, I mean, really, I mean, how many people could act that want to do that are going to work 100 hours a week, that are going to travel to TV every week, that know the business, love the business, are good enough to do it? I mean, you see how many people screw up wrestling companies. Tony Khan's experiencing that. Oh, booking's really tough. You have to know how to manage talent. You need to know how to write for talent. You need to know how to do long-term booking. You need to keep things confidential. You need to know a good idea from a bad idea. You need to know how to scout talent. You need to have a pipeline. I mean, go on and on. So I don't even know. I don't even know who else could do Triple H's job. I mean, if he got hit by a bus today, Bruce Pritchard could come in and do it. Shawn Michaels now has enough experience. He could probably come in and do it. After that, what is it? I mean, are you going to like a Scott D'Amore who used to run TN? I mean, and do you trust that type of person at that level? I don't know. But my point is that it's so difficult. So, there's just not a pipeline of people that can do that. So I say that to say, TKO, the board, has a responsibility for WWE. Even Nick Khan's job is easier to fill than Triple H's, because you could come in with TV experience, sports experience. You could be on the UFC side of the house as a COO and then run WWE. Like, from an executive standpoint, that's easier. So I don't know. I think they're going to be around for a very long period of time. You never know. Stephanie may get back involved. The ice may thaw on that situation. Shane, you just never know, right? Seems unlikely, but you just never know. So there's a handful of people out there, but it's like one hand that could even do it. Heyman, probably on that list, but he's no spring chicken, and you just never know. So anyways,
he's got the good gig with Roman. He doesn't. Yeah,
right. Hell of a match going on here. I mean, it's just nonstop. They're just two incredible performers.
So talking about like obviously takeover and stuff like that, like and I don't know how up to date this is, but here's a list of your producers. And so I like on the show right now, because I always enjoy hearing, like they said, like it was Abyss who produced the Hell in the Cell match with, CM Punk and Drew and stuff like that. But you got Billy Kidman, Jamie Noble, Jason Jordan, Kenny Dykstra, Michael Hayes, Molly Holly, Petey Williams, Robert Roode, Shane Helms, Sean Devari, TJ Wilson. Like,
wow. So those are the folks that are back there right now.
Right. And I find it in Abyss, Chris Parks. And so, but I find it really interesting. Like most of these guys and women, like they didn't have, 5-star match careers. And I think it speaks to like, they didn't have to, because they just have their in-ring knowledge and like some of these matches they're producing. Like TJ Wilson typically does the women's matches and we get fantastic matches. We know like Abyss has done some big ones lately, including that Hell in a Cell match was for what it's worth, 5-star match from Meltzer. And so I think that's Shawn selling the shit out of everything Bret's throwing at him now, which is great. But like that's why I want to like CM Punk, obviously, like, oh, he's the big name, he'll take over after Shawn, but like it could who knows who it's going to be. Like Jason Jordan has quietly been, they have him listed as the lead producer. Like his in-ring career, for whatever, it's over because of injury. I think it was his neck or whatever it was. But like, yeah, every once in a while you'll see him on camera. You see some of these people that add some credibility to these things. Where if he's doing that, like, so who knows who could eventually take over?
Well,
for Shawn
with Jason, like Jason Jordan, it's just genetic.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so he was he's actually from Indiana. And so when they had an NXT show, my brother and I went to it, the venue you and I went to, that tiny little basement venue where they threw an NXT show. Like he's a Hoosier. And so he was getting the Hoosier chance, which is really cool for him. I sure, that had to feel good. And so, but yeah, like he was so like him both him.
So okay, here, you're going to have to help me out here. So he's from Indiana. And I don't mean to be crass, but did Kurt Angle impregnate a woman that lived in Indiana?
He must have, yeah. Like okay. That, I get it. Like that. Well, that's, yeah. Well, and I think it, like, who knows? Like, yeah, obviously he didn't know for a long time that was his son. And so it's good that he knows now, but yeah, that's just one, who knows? But yeah,
dude, these two are just in a freaking battle, man. And it is like 50-50. I mean,
yeah, it really is. Here's you talk about genetic here. We're going down the rabbit hole here now. You've got Jason Jordan. He was ranked top 15 in the nation for 3 years in a row in NCAA wrestling. His senior year, he was undefeated in the regular season, going 35-0, and at one point was ranked as high as number 2 in the nation.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Let's see here. Dude, his accolades at Indiana University, had his face painted onto a wall of the campus gym in 2010. There you go. I don't know if it's still there or not, but there you go. So, but yeah, Kurt Angle, like just breeding excellence. Yeah.
I got to tell you, when I watched this match, and keep in mind, I am a complete homer. Okay. Yep. I am a Shawn Michaels mark. So take this with a grain of salt.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm sitting here going, if I'm Vince McMahon, I got the world title on the wrong guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then just because Shawn, there's more there from a character standpoint, right? Like arrogant heel, show off, will move Sherry in front of the glass so she gets hit by Marty instead of him. Like chicken shit heel. Like, I mean, I'm just watching this and I'm like, so that I have that thought, okay? But let me tell you the other, and again, I guess it's a babyface territory, so no heel's going to be world champion. But then the other thing I'd say to that is, it's hard for me to believe it took 3.5 years from this match for Shawn Michaels to be world champion. Yeah. Again, 2020 hindsight, but it's like, what did we do between this match and WrestleMania 12? We did the Yokozuna thing, which I'm okay with. You caught lightning in a bottle. The guy was just a freak athlete. Worthwhile experiment. We tried Lex Luger, which absolutely did not work, obviously. Okay. Then, so we thought maybe our new Hulk Hogan would be Lex Luger. Then we went back to Bret over Yoko because Lex didn't work. Then we chin music before it was the finisher. Once he got stronger with that kick, he was able to use it as a finisher. Okay, so we try the Lex thing, it doesn't work. We go back to Bret. All right. Then we end up with big ass Sid being champion because hold on, I'm getting my years mixed up. Then we went to Diesel, sorry, not Sid, Diesel, because hey, we've got a big ass baby face. It's just interesting the road it took to get to Shawn, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And again, it's easy 2020 hindsight, but and not that Shawn was like the biggest draw in the world either, but it is kind of interesting of like all the stuff. I mean, you look at, and Bruce Pritchard has said this, Vince was looking for his next big hit. And after Hogan, you know, we're in this like stage of limbo. It wasn't Bret, it wasn't Lex, it wasn't Yoko, it wasn't Diesel. And then we get to Shawn.
Yep. Yeah, I think part of it was the time, like, you know, or was the time, like, you know, just wrestlers, you know, steroids or, you know, whatever random kind of occurrences took them out of the picture on some of this. And so you had to kind of work with what you had. And like, oh, geez, that was a crazy. Michaels got tied up and then got out of the way. And then Bret got tied up really hard. That looked like it hurt his head. Hebner's kind of checking on his head. Yeah. Good selling, though. Crazy.
I mean, this is just a phenomenal match. I mean, I'm not surprised. I will tell you, though, this match has been better than I thought.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, they've given it the time to cook, as I like to say. Like, we're going about 20-ish plus minutes in. There you go.
So there you go. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Place is happy. Man,
yeah, everybody.
It's you got babyface Santa Claus coming out. Okay, I mean, we'll get more into this, but it's just
we'll let it play.
I guess I'm just really looking at this, trying to figure out how Bret could have been a bigger star.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not losing to Yokozuna, yeah, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and then the Yoko thing, I don't see. That's the kind of stuff that. Man, I don't know. I mean, we could talk about the Vince McMahon documentary all day, but it's like those are the things, and I'm not saying that documentary was the right time for it, but those are the things that I want to know. Mm-hmm. Like I want, you know, a Conrad Thompson to say, "Hey Vince, I got to ask you, why'd you go with Yoko?" Like that's the stuff I want to know, right?
Right. I want the history of
Yeah, so like from a business standpoint, not even like, I mean, not fantasy booking, but just like, you know, what was going through your mind in '92? What was going through your mind when you put the title on a big ass heel? Was it just something different? Did you think Yoko was going to draw money? You know, was there any thought of Taker during this era? Did you know Shawn Michaels was the guy? Like, those are the things I want to know. So, all right, let's transition
it's time for the aftermath.
What'd you think?
Just great. Like, you know, the match definitely exceeded what I thought it was going to be. Like, you know, whether the story was a little sloppy ahead of it or not didn't really matter. Because the match is like we've said before, like these two can't have a bad match. Like, just plain and simple. Like, there's just not. It's just not what they can do. And so just really good. Bret on this one. So getting into the aftermath, like we've hinted at a little bit here. Of course, he beat Razor Ramon at the Royal Rumble that year, 1993. Yeah, that was right. And so eventually going on though to losing the belt to Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9 as well. And then the whole mess that kind of played out with that. Michaels on the flip side here. Taking out Ultimate Warrior, that show as well too. Of course, then he had the getting back with Marty Jannetty, but then losing the title to Jannetty, and then they're kind of back and forth for quite a bit too. And of course, then debuting of Diesel as well. And so, just kind of, it just kind of played out, like plain and simple, like the story that we know. And this was weird to think this was kind of an interesting stepping stone for these guys, but it's still really good stuff. But PWI, Bret was number 4, Shawn was 16. This was by a landslide the best match on the card on this one. Said from the Observer newsletter on this one, the Bret vs. Shawn main event, watched on its own without following a few bad matches, was an excellent match. Bret made Shawn submit in 26:40 with the sharpshooter, technically excellent with several hot moves from both and no flaws at all. Finish saw Michaels come off the top rope with a drop kick, but Hart caught his legs and turned it into the Scorpion, not the sharpshooter. After the match, Santa Claus came to the ring, held up Hart's hand. Would have been a perfect spot for an angle, but instead they gimmicked snow to fall instead of the fireworks for the triumphant babyface clean win ending. 4.5 stars from Mr. Dave Meltzer. So
wow.
Don't have anything on the torch on this one. So what are you thinking for this?
Man, I have this at you may not believe this. I have this at a 9.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought the match was damn good, and I'm pulling in like historical context to this. These are 2 of the biggest stars ever. They are both relatively young. We're shifting to the new generation. I'd have to go back and look at pay-per-view main events. But Jeff, was there ever in the history of the WWF to this point 2 guys that weren't built like Hulk Hogan in the main event?
Yeah.
So this is, to have 2 small guys, not 1, but 2 small guys in there, this is just huge. And I went back and looked because I was curious on the date. January 11th of 1992 is when Shawn Michaels turned on Marty. Pretty wild. 10 months later, here we are. Okay. We go into 92. Bret's about to win the IC title. Shawn Michaels is coming off a tag team reign. And here we are. These 2 are headlining Survivor Series. And they have this incredible match that's probably the best WWF pay-per-view match since Savage and Steamboat, if you're just talking pure wrestling. So I think there's just a lot of factors here, but I love this. What I wish would have happened is we would have gotten to see where these guys could have gone. This, in a perfect world, these 2 literally could have feuded from 92 to 2002, 2005. This could have been a 10 to 15 year greatest rivalry of all time, certainly in the top 5, but I'm not going to hold that against this match. So I loved it. I just think it's fantastic. What about you?
Yeah, I before you even said it, I was like, he's going to say 9. And I was like, yep, that's where I'm at. And so because it was that good, like I said, especially for their really one of their, I say, earlier matches, and I'm taking each other on at that point. Like it's really good. Like it's hard to not enjoy, just watching it. And that's one where we talk about, like, does it stand alone? Yeah, it does. Like it stands alone for you can throw that match on and just see a great wrestling match. Like that's really untapped, like there's so much potential there. So yeah. So I just think that was really good. Absolutely worth it. I'm right there with you at a 9. I think anything lower than that's almost a disservice to these guys. And so yeah, just phenomenal stuff. Absolutely. So what else? Do I have anything else? That's it. Yeah. Manscaped, of course. Don't forget using that promo code payoff. Again, like we said last week, and we say every week, that lots of good stuff in the store. It's getting to be that holiday season. And so get ordered what you need, whether it's for yourself, somebody else, there's all kinds of deals. Make sure you're using our promo codes, giving you free shipping and 20% off to use payoff whenever you're checking out at manscaped.com.
Dude, they got so much good stuff. Check it out. Holiday shopping, getting yourself some stuff, upgrading some of the stuff you have. And I'm not saying this because they're a sponsor, but everything they have is an upgrade over normal stuff, right? The razors are better, the trimmers are better, the shampoo's better. I mean, everything they have is better than average. It's better than what you're probably using now. And
it lasts.
I don't know. I think it's worth it. Yeah, it lasts.
Yep. Worth it. Good stuff. Okay. Let's send them home happy.
Cool.
Good stuff. What do we got?
All right. Well, we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next week on an all new episode of The Payoff.